Hello. Glad you are here. All right. So wonderful to see you all. Are we here? Let's see. Yeah. I'm gonna see who we got coming in. All right. Fantastic. Fantastic. Okay. Good evening, everybody. Good evening. It is Sunday evening here in the Midwest. And so I figure many of you, if you're a teacher, you're probably either getting ready to go back to school tomorrow or in the near future. Or if you're a parent, your kids are either getting ready for school tomorrow or in the near future. And I just wanted to pop on here a little bit for a little bit, just to help set your mood, so to speak, and talk with you a bit. So let's do that. My name is Molly, and this is Rainy Day Plans. If you are new to this channel, which you probably are because my channel is new, please subscribe and then make sure you like, hit notifications, share this with anybody, just not anybody, but with anybody who you think would benefit from talking about not just teaching, but how we as teachers and parents, because we're all teachers, how we can mindfully and intentionally influence the energetic development of children. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. And if you've seen any of my previous videos, that's kind of what I've tried to share with you about kind of my goals here and the angle I'm going to be taking on all of this. So just so that you know who I am, not just like any old body jumping on here. I am a veteran teacher. I've been teaching for over 25 years and just recently stepped out of the classroom. And then I stepped into a nonprofit position that works with parents and teachers to support like differentiation and things like that, specifically for the needs of advanced and gifted students. I spent most of my years, all but one of my years teaching middle school gifted ELA. I have also taught Gen Ed ELA, I've taught math, I've taught social studies, but I've always taught middle school. And so that's kind of where my heart is with middle schoolers in terms of my breadth of confidence. But I've also worked with small children all the way down to preschoolers and all the way up through high school. And when I say I've worked with them, that would be the other part of my like bag of tricks, tools of the trade. I am a yoga teacher, but also a trauma-informed yoga teacher. This is from, gosh, I've been doing this for over 15 years. And I have brought those two things together, the yoga and mindfulness of yoga, the principles of yoga, along with the academic needs of students or of a school itself. So that's what I kind of have as my main focus of everything I bring to conversations I have with people, to any of the advice or problem solving I do with teachers, parents, etc. I am also a PD provider for teachers in the state of Illinois. So I've got lots of teacher trainings. Most of them are focused on either some aspect of SEL, social emotional learning, but a lot of my social emotional learning really focuses on the teacher themselves. And that's what we're doing here today. Okay. So if, I guess I really want to start by saying what we're going to be looking at today are some pages from a book that of mine that I am updating, and it is called the Tranquil Teacher Lesson Plan book. And then I have also created from that just a handbook, when you'll see kind of what I mean by that. So what I decided to do is I wanted to look at some of those pages, and I want to give them to you. I want you to have them. And I don't want you to necessarily, well, you can't buy my book because it's being edited right now anyway. But I want you to have these pages to at least help support your energetic sense of well being for the next couple of months. All right. So I'm going to put on here, let's see, there we go. I think it's also, there's a link in the description box, but also you can scan this code and just grab it, download it. You don't have to do another thing with it tonight. Okay. You really don't. I'm going to look at it with you. And so you can come back to this video if you need explanation about it. But for right now, I want you to be either winding down your day with your family or with your fun in the sun. Maybe you're already in your cozy pants or pajamas and either tucked in bed or under, under a blanket with your favorite person, dog, pet, book, or whatever on the couch. Or maybe you do have some lesson planning going on in front of you. And that's fine. You can keep doing your work while I talk about this, and just let me be in your background to help you establish the tone that perhaps you would like for this coming week. Okay. Whether it's you as a parent or you as a teacher or something else. Okay. So, as I said, the book that I'm writing is, well, I've written it, but I have to rewrite it, is called the Tranquil Teacher Lesson Plan book. And the way I initially set it up is I took a regular teacher's planning book, and then I wrote content for teachers to help them with um, their own self-care. And I also added things relevant to social emotional learning that a teacher would maybe want to have along with them throughout the year. So it's kind of 3 parts, right, in that book. And then what I'm doing now is I'm taking the content part out of the planner so that teachers can have a smaller version that has the self-care and has the social emotional parts, just by itself, in case you already have your lesson plan book, or that's how you want, if you want to keep them separate, that's fine too. So I'm rewriting it and basically I just I'm reorganizing it. But as I was doing that, I thought, oh yeah, I really want to go over some of this. I don't want people to wait to get this book or even have to get the book in order to get some of the really important information that's in it. So that's what I'm going to share with you today. Okay. So, as I said, I'm going to take down this little QR code, but the link is also in the description box. And FYI, I am just trying this new little, presentation style for the first time. And we will see how this works. Okay. Can I go a little bigger? No, come back. No, how did I go? Okay, there we go. Okay, so If you've listened to any of my other videos, like I am a walking work in progress. I know we all are, but I'm like, it is front and center in my mind that I dive into things knowing like a little bit about it. And I'm all about learning more. Like, well, let's figure it out. So that's what we're doing here today. Okay. So as I said, you're going to get, this is what what you are going to get. Okay. If you've downloaded it already, or if you're going to download it, this is the same exact thing. So, um, as I said, I called it the Tranquil Teacher Handbook because even though a lot of social emotional learning um, is is taught in schools, is done in schools, it's a school curriculum or it's a school kind of term. Like parents don't generally walk around talking about social emotional learning. They talk about the things that are in social emotional learning. And in any case, I believe that the most important part of social emotional learning is the adult who's showing up in a child's life. Okay. So we're going to look at some of the ways that you, as a teacher or a parent, can start to very, very, very simply focus on a few things that are not only going to be good for you, but that will then be good for the people you interact with, and in particular, your students or your children. So let's look. Okay, we don't need to see the copyright page. Okay, so the first page we're going to kind of stop at and look at is a list of priorities that, there we go, that I'd like you to consider. And of course, this is not in any way, shape, or form um, the only list of priorities, but based on my own experience, but also um, what I've, you know, when I've listened to teachers talk or things I've noticed, or whether I'm talking with teachers in person or it's all over on social media and things like that. This is where I'm like, okay, I think these are some things that people would like to be their priorities, but aren't always the priority. So most of all, it is physical health. And I think most people think of self-care as physical health, like taking care of themselves physically, whether it's at exercise or eating right, or it's kind of like more pampering kind of things like massages and manicures. But a lot of people are focused on improving their physical health, and with good reason. When you're working in a stressful job of any sort, um, that takes a toll on your physical health. So it is important to remember to keep that as a priority. Unfortunately, especially as teachers and parents, like it's sometimes difficult to keep that at the top of the list. However, I will say of all the priorities on here, that seems to be the easiest one to somehow like at least come back to remember, you know? So if you do put any of these as priorities, a lot of teachers, do prioritize physical health. So let's look at the rest of those. Improving your mental and emotional health. So this is important to think about, like, what do I mean by that? Personally, for yourself, what do you mean by your mental health or your emotional health? And I'm not a therapist or mental health professional, but I want you to think about mental health is about what you are thinking about. Okay, the thoughts that you have. You might also hear that as like the stories we tell ourselves, the things we believe, anything that we put into our language could be mental health. And so if we're talking about mental health, like wanting to improve it, perhaps we're thinking like, I know I'm going to speak personally here. I'd like to catch myself when I start speaking negatively to myself or about myself, when I start criticizing myself. So those are mental health signs. And then, I have to then stop and then reframe it and try to find something else. Okay. So those are the mental. Emotional health is the language of our body that does not have words. So we give words to the emotional part, but it's the rise of sensation that kind of pushes us to action, whether that action is an active action or a passive action like resting. The emotion is kind of what sends us that way. Okay. And when we're talking about emotional health, usually we're talking about a sense of emotional regulation. And so let's think about, most people will say, I want to reduce stress, but stress is external, right? Stress is external. The stress response is internal. So if we want to address what's happening externally, we can do that. But if we can't change what's happening externally, or we're choosing not to, like maybe we don't want to quit our job or whatever, then we can work on our stress response. So that's where this is so amazing. That's where emotions and emotional health, mental health, and physical health all come together, right? The stress response is all three of those things. Okay. So that's what you might want to be thinking about. Maybe you want to manage your frustrations or reactions better. So the rest of these kind of are examples of this. Maybe you want to do a particular activity more often, whether it's meditate, exercise, eat healthy, do something consistently that you just haven't been able to like really get going on it. Or maybe you have enjoyed it all summer and it's something that you might fall away from during the school year. I want to alleviate my stress at school. So that is what I'm talking about a lot. And I see it so much with our young teachers. And that might be you. I hope it is. Because you've actually, if you are a Gen Z teacher, and I talk a lot to Gen Z teachers, if you're a Gen Z teacher, it's very possible that you have spent a lot of your educational years in a lot of stress, like in consistent stress. And that's not normal. I want you to know that. Now, it's the norm right now, but it has not been the norm for most. I mean, I haven't lived that long, but for a long, long time. Instead, we had big stressful things happen and then a lot of not very, kind of boring routine kind of things, right? So if you're a Gen Z teacher, you may have, not probably, but you may have felt very stressed out at school a lot. And now you've chosen to become a teacher because you're a wonderful human being, well, unfortunately, it's not better on the other side, is it? And in fact, it can be a little bit worse at times. So if this is one of your priorities to alleviate your stress at school, just remember what I said earlier, that you can make plans to alleviate the external forces of stress, but you can also work to alleviate the internal stress response. All right. Um, Going on, this is where we start kind of get into the kid part. I want to create a calm environment for my students. And spoiler alert, if it's a calm environment for your students, it's a calm environment for you. Okay. And vice versa overall. In other words, you want to work in a calm environment. Okay. Maybe you want to understand social emotional learning better. Like you've heard it over and over and over again. And if you feel like if your response to hearing that is kind of a, oh, gosh, not what, like that kind of thing, um, then I would say, hey, we could understand it a little bit better. Because to be honest, a lot of what goes in to schools and is, I don't want to say thrown at teachers, but is provided for teachers is often a very surface level and sometimes not 100% accurate, depending on where it came from, interpretation of what social emotional learning is and what it can be. All right. Um, if you would like to teach social emotional learning, if you're like, I think I know what it is, how do you feel about teaching it? Especially if you're a math teacher or a science teacher or an English teacher, like, do you like being given a curriculum of social emotional learning and said, hey, do this too? Um, for me, for me, it wasn't stressful because I already knew this. And I just wasn't, I wasn't that bound to it. But for a lot of teachers, they're coming, they're like, oh gosh, and then they're reading a script and doing things in it. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But usually content area teachers feel a little resentful because either it's being taken, they're taking time away from their content, or they're having time taken away from their planning period, if they have that, right, to either plan it or actually teach it. So I'm going to show you how to make that a little bit better for you. I can't fix it all, but I'm going to show you how to make that a little bit better, at least for 2 months. And I want to connect with other Tranquil teachers. Now, of course, I call any teacher who's trying to incorporate mindfulness as a habit or as their own environment or as their own um, inner development, inner work. I call us all Tranquil teachers. Okay. And when I say you want to connect with that, I don't mean only like connect with people who call themselves Tranquil teachers who are this. I mean, if you want to connect with people who are on the same energetic journey as you or same energetic vibe. Okay. And you may have those people in your life already, or maybe you're the one and only in your school. And of course, that's not always that fun either, is it? Okay, so moving on. So this is what you're going to do if you've been listening in the background, or if you did print this out and you're looking at it with me, you're just going to look at this, check anything that applies, but also add anything else that I don't have on there, okay? Now, this isn't, they're not directly like one-to-one related to things, but you're going to see how the self-care options that we talk about, how they relate more or less to some of these, okay? So that'll help guide you on what you want to do. When I talk about teacher self-care, I'm just going to read this to you, okay? Just, you know what? Sit back, close your eyes, take a sip of water, whatever you've got there for your evening, and just relax. And I'm just going to read this to you, okay? What I mean when I talk about tranquil teacher self-care, okay? We often think of self-care as the luxuries we indulge in after a tough week or the emergency interventions that occur after a physical or mental crisis. We tend to ignore the former one, right? Like if it's a luxury, we ignore it until it's way too late. And then we end up paying for the latter through missed work, medical costs, addictions, or conflicts at home, right? Tranquil teachers view self-care as the necessary, underline, necessary life habits that support physical and emotional well-being. I'm going to read that again because I'm impressing myself with it. Tranquil teachers view self-care as the necessary life habits that support physical and emotional well-being. Self-care relies on an acute daily awareness of our physical and emotional needs and a commitment to meeting those needs as a daily priority. And I know that this is difficult to do, okay? Self-care is the foundation of the Tranquil Teacher Handbook. Self-care is the first task a tranquil teacher will evaluate and plan based on mindful awareness. So if you are listening and doing lesson plans at the same time, as I said you might be, pause for a second if you can, and just come back to this real quick because I'm going to read it again and then I'm going to ask you to do something. Okay. This third paragraph says self-care is the foundation of the Tranquil Teacher Handbook. Self-care is the first task a tranquil teacher will evaluate and plan based on mindful awareness. So with that, we're going to pause. I'm going to ask you to do something. I'm just going to ask you to put everything down, place your hands either on your lap, on your heart center, on your belly, or alongside you if you're lying down, and take a couple of nice slow breaths. And what we're going to do right now is evaluate how we're feeling at this moment physically, okay, physical sensations, areas of tightness, areas that are sore, areas that are that are feeling kind of like out of place. Sorry, that's my dog. Okay, and then I want you to think about, I want you to turn your awareness inward towards your mind. So we were just shining our awareness on our body. Now I want you to turn your awareness like a spotlight on your mind and just watch or evaluate like what thoughts are bouncing around in there or going past as you're doing this. And then if you would like, you can shift that awareness spotlight to an emotion that you are sensing in there. And emotions can be difficult because a lot of times what we call an emotion is really just our narrative, our story. But emotion could be nervous, could be relaxed, could be excited, could be calm, could be happy. Sometimes it's easier to just describe how your body is feeling and not worry so much about labeling the emotion right away. Okay. So once we've done that, okay, what we've just done is practice that little piece of mindful awareness. We put everything down, hopefully, physically put things down, and we turned our awareness to ourself. And then we're just going to notice what it's like. We don't have to change a darn thing, okay? And then if you'd like, you can take a nice deep breath. And if you want to go back to what you were doing, you can, or you can just lie there and listen as I continue reading, okay? Tranquil Teacher self-care is based on small, doable habits that build a calm mind and spirit. Now, I use the word spirit. You might also think of that as energy. I use the word energy a lot on this channel. So a calm mind and a calm, positive spirit or energy. We offer a variety of habits, routines, and activities that you can explore and practice. These activities are linked to how we move, how we feel, how we nourish, how we connect, and how we reflect. The basis for a healthy, happy, and peace-filled life. How do each of these components show up in your life today? Which ones seem easiest to change? Any of them? The self-care lessons in the book can be used in whatever order suits your needs best. So there are, I believe, 12 pages in the book. I'm providing you with 2, which has plenty of things to do to get you started, okay? Start where it's easiest. Start where it feels the best. Don't start with the thing that is the hardest for you to do unless it is super, super important, okay? All right. So with that, I have completed my reading of that page. I will not read this whole entire thing to you about social emotional learning, but I do want you to see my perspective on this, okay? So the social emotional learning section here is the second part of this, right? The first part, the priority, is you, the teacher, and getting yourself okay. Because here's the secret, a lot of the reason we're having trouble with kids today is not because of you personally as an adult, but because we collectively as adults are not showing up with the appropriate energy that kids thrive under. So they are responding to what we're bringing. So I look at social emotional learning from 3 different parts, okay? The first part is, if you are familiar with SEL, is going to also be familiar to you. It is based on the CASEL 5 competencies. If you are in Illinois, Illinois just adopted or rewrote their social emotional learning standards to reflect these 5. They were previously they previously had only 3 goals. I honestly I can't remember what they were. They were somehow related to this, but now there's all 5, and the 5 are the same as the CASEL 5, okay? And if your state doesn't have a social emotional learning, oh, this is so important. You can use any of this in your classroom anyway, because it's not an SEL curriculum. You don't have to worry about standards, and it all makes sense because they focus on self-awareness, which that's what we just practiced as adults. We just practiced a moment of self-awareness, right? Self-management, controlling what we're doing and what we're saying and how we're responding. Social awareness, right? Being aware of what's going on around us and social cues and things like that. Relationship building and responsible decision making. So those are the 5 competencies under CASEL, and I have included these, related them in this book as well. However, I've also included 4 elements that I've talked about before that I call them real. That's why they're real social emotional learning, because it's not an inauthentic curriculum. It's like what really goes on in developing these skills. And they're an acronym. So the R is relationship building, which we know about, but it's more the adult creating and setting the expectations for relationships. E is environment, how we set up our environment. A would be actual activities we can do with kids. Some of them are embedded or can be embedded in our curriculum. And that's the part that I'm really excited about sharing with teachers. And then L is our language, how we are speaking. And a lot of this comes, well, I shouldn't say speaking, it's our body language as well as our verbal language. And a lot of this is based on trauma sensitive teaching. Okay. So that's right. Yeah. So we have the 5 competencies, we have these 4 elements, and then I have 3 themes that are included in here. And you're not gonna see all 3, but they are about, because I don't think I have them listed in here. I think they're on another page. Awareness, no, interactions, awareness, and intentions. Okay. So as I said, this comes after you plan. Do not plan this before you plan yourself. Okay. So here is a sample page, and I have 2 of them in this download. Sample pages of Tranquil Teacher Self-Care. Okay. So I talk about one area that you can focus on. And then I give you some like examples of things like actual activities you can do, or things you can practice, or things you can include in your week or month that you're focusing on this. Okay. So in this case, we're talking about moving, because they all connect to one of these things: moving, feeling, nourishing, connecting, or reflecting. So this is moving, but this is moving internally. As I said, I know that the one thing that teachers can more easily prioritize, I'm not saying it's easy, but more easily, is getting some physical movement in, which is fantastic. In this case, I'm talking about the internal movement, which can be a couple of things, of course, but I'm focusing on the breath, moving, or how we breathe, okay? How we breathe. And that in and of itself is such an important tool to helping us regulate all of those other things that we talked about. How we breathe affects our self-awareness. It affects our self-management. It affects our social interactions. It affects our mental health and what we're thinking about. It affects our emotions for sure, because they are directly tied to our breath. And the breath is the only thing that we can control, but also don't have to control, and our body will do it for us. It's the only thing. You have to physically decide to make any other movement, or there are things you cannot control, like digestion. You can't be like, I'm going to stop my digestion just by thinking about it, right? So either it's completely autonomic, or it is only controllable. But the breath is both. All right. It's literally the bridge between the physical part of us that's here and the non-physical part of us, whatever that is to you. As I said, some people call that spirit, some people call that our energy or our higher self, or just, your awareness, whatever that is, that's not part of your physicalness that you recognize as you. The breath is what's linking those two together. Okay. All right. So taking care of our breath is super important, and getting to know it and working with it is so important to helping establish all of those other things that we want to work on as well. Um, so I've provided you obviously with some text to read, but then some practices. So in a nutshell, the breath controls whether we're stimulated and we have energy to keep going, move on, be motivated. So that's a strong breath, or it helps us relax. Nice, slow, calm, intentionally slow breathing in particular. Because obviously, as we go to sleep, our breath tends to slow, but then we're not conscious anymore. So it's only that, right, automatic breathing that's happening. So I've given us a couple of different ways that we can practice each of those. And then depending on like where you are, what you're feeling. So for example, if at night you find it difficult to slow down, difficult to actually fall asleep, then your nervous system, we can talk about this another time, but your nervous system is too fired up, too stimulated, and you can intentionally practice some breathing to help lower it so that you can fall asleep. The opposite of that would be when you're feeling sluggish, lethargic, unmotivated, maybe a bit sad. I don't want to say that this is going to fix being like depressed and things like that, but it does not hurt it either. It will certainly help the physiological aspect of any type of heaviness, slowness, stuckness that you're feeling. A lot of times people feel that in the morning, right? So let's look at one of these. Yeah, we'll look at the first slow breathing practice, and you know what, let's just do it. So you can do this even while you're doing something else, but I encourage you to, take a beat and just put stuff down for a second. And this is probably one that you're familiar with if you've got children and you've done any kind of regulation with them, emotional regulating with them. It's a really good one. So we're just going to count to 4 as you inhale and count to 4 as you exhale. Now I say 4, and you can make that as quickly or as slowly as you need. But of course, if we're practicing slow breathing, we're going to try slowing down that 4 or extending it from 4 to 5 to 6. Okay. So let's do that together. Sitting either with your back straight or lying back, relaxed, but with a straight back so your lungs fill your whole body. You're not crunched over, okay? And then all we're going to do is we're going to take a nice inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. One more time. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then release your count, release your breath, rest for a bit. Okay. So you can see how quickly I counted. Maybe your breathing was matched up with my count. Maybe you were a little ahead of me or a little behind, but it gives you a sense of then you could go past 4, right? Go to 5 or 6. So you can see the next one, inhale for 8, is just a random number or any other number. Hold for 2 before you exhale, and then exhale for 10. So that might be instead inhale for 4, hold for 1, exhale for 5. Okay, so you can adapt it to whatever, because I know if I'm really anxious, it takes a long time, for me to slow that breath down. So don't force it, but start with what you have. And this is why I had you do that 3 times. Things probably won't change, won't shift a whole lot until after your 3rd breath. So give it 3 and then see where you're at, okay? You can also take 5 slow breaths before a particular thing. So this might be a really nice one if you are feeling, if you're trying to address how you feel at school, stress at school. So you're going to be like, before I begin each class, I'm going to take 5 slow breaths or 2 slow breaths or even 1, right? But I mean, I encourage 3 or more. But that would be a great thing to try to remember. You're not going to remember every class period, or every time you switch subjects or whatever, but you're going to remember more than none, I bet. And so that's a really good thing to start practicing. Maybe you have a hard time in meetings, either speaking up or listening with an open mind. And here's why I say both of those. If you are listening with an open mind and you are feeling like angst within the meeting, then that tells me you have something to say. Are you saying it? That doesn't mean it's not like saying whatever you feel like, because that's the self-management part. But if there's something that you would like different, or that you think is a problem, or you have a suggestion, or you have a problem you'd like to help with, say it, right? Or say it at some point, because that's what you're anxious. If you have an open mind, right? If you don't have an open mind, then you might want to start with that. Okay. But in either case, start with 1 or 2 slow breaths before the meeting, before you say anything, or as you're feeling the irritation in you, right? And then 10 slow breaths when I notice anger or anxiety. So that's a big number, right? But anger and anxiety are pretty big emotions. And what they feel strong in our body, because our body wants to do something very, very much, right? That's what anger and anxiety are. They're like emotions that are wanting you to do something active. So this is one way. If you cannot do something active, 10 slow breaths, and it might start out actually quick breath, like slowing breaths, when you notice that way. All right. On the flip side, if you would like to raise your energy, maybe you're going to get some strong breathing practice by taking a morning walk for X minutes. Okay. And so this is how we can combine that physical. Physical obviously does give us strong breathing. So if you already have a habit of doing some sort of physical activity, all I'm going to ask you to do is bring some mindful awareness to a couple of your breaths. Oh, I have the best. I have the best running workout that utilizes this mindful breathing awareness. So I'll share that another time, though. Maybe you just need to get some strong breathing in while you're in class. This would be that if you notice a lot of that physical anxiety or anger, either in yourself or even in your students, do something active with them. Do a dance party with your class. Or if they're not into that, you know what I would do? I would have kids do a jumping, practice their what is it? Their vertical. Practice their jump, practice their high jump, practice jumping. Walk the halls or the stairs at school if you have a break. Don't just immediately sit down. Go take a nice brisk walk. Plan a game of something with somebody at some point. Learn or practice a vigorous breath work like Halabata or the Wim Hof method. So I'm not teaching those here. You can look to your local yoga teacher, or come to, we'll do a specific meditation and breathing day. But anything that gets that breathing in up and going, that's going to help with that feeling of stuckness and heaviness. Okay. So the reason I'm giving you this page, this is for 1 whole month. For 1 whole month. And you can pick one thing on here and do it the whole month. You can pick one thing and try it for a couple of days, and another thing for another couple of days till you find something you like, or try 2 things each week. But this is what I mean when I'm like, self-care is the really important stuff that is super simple, and it's so simple we ignore it. Don't ignore it. Okay. All right. So next, I'm not going to go into it as much with this one, but the other one I'm giving you, if you don't want to do the breathing and you want to do this one instead, you can, or I'll talk about this another time. This is intended to be a different month, but it doesn't matter what order you do these in. They're not sequential, so it doesn't matter. Do this one instead if you like. But this is about the feeling part. This is inhabiting your body, feeling into your body, getting grounded. Grounded just means like, well, it can mean a lot of things, but it's more physical, it's more in the present moment. That's really what I want you to think about. Being grounded is being able to get in the present moment instead of having your mind in the future or of course in the past, right? Um, it also is the opposite of feeling anxious, because even anxiety is a physical sensation that has us feeling like it's lifting us up and swirling us around, right? So get grounded would be, imagine what you're doing is you're catching yourself and just bringing yourself back down to earth, down on the ground, seated or standing, things like that. So it just gives you moments to do that. All right. So these are some ways you can think about when you need that the most, where you need it the most, like was it situations. And I think I'm giving you a couple of different, they're either movement or yoga based for the most part, but they're also things you can do or include in your environment to help with the groundedness. Okay. So think about some of those, what you can do. I like the last one, get a pedicure. As I said, that's usually on our list of self-care, but this is a pedicure with a twist. It's a simple twist. Go get a pedicure. And instead of scrolling on your phone or, doing work, be mindful of the attention being given to your feet. Like watch it. Watch yourself getting a pedicure. Feel the sensations of things. Speak up if you don't like how something feels, if you want something warmer, colder, stronger, whatever. But like get into the feeling of that if that's your, if you like that. Okay. Okay. So those are the 2 months of self-care, 2 pages, I guess, 2 ideas intended to be 2 different months, but do with them what you would like. And that's for you. And as I said, this happens first. Figure this out first because you can see how simple they are, right? And I don't want you to decide they're so simple, I don't even need to plan for them. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Because you're going to forget. They're so simple, you're going to forget until you come back over and over and over again. So start by at least planning them with good intention. Okay. And then here we go. I knew I had this in here. So here are the things for social emotional learning. I encourage you to print this out and like put it up on your, I don't know, on your bulletin board, or put it somewhere that you'll see it. Really, that's what I mean. Put it somewhere that you will see it, because this is mostly for you. This is not an SEL curriculum for kids to do, although there are some things for kids to do. This is for you to utilize. All right. So here I added one more to the 5 competencies, and that is resilience. Hope I spelled that right. And that's in all aspects, but resilience, I think, is also a really important aspect of social emotional growth. And then those 4 elements that we talked about, and then the 3 themes, right, of interactions, awareness, and intention. So the way this is set up, the way I've set up, and as I said, I only have a couple of pages, is that it's kind of divided into, not quarters into the 3 themes. So the first theme is interactions. And then within that theme, it focuses on some of these 5 competencies. So for example, in interactions, we're mostly focusing on, what are we focusing on? I think relationship building and decision making, or social awareness. I don't know. We'll see it. But it's like the focus. Doesn't mean it's only in there, but that's kind of the main focus, are 2 or more of these competencies. And then there are 4 lessons under each of those. So there's a lesson about relationships. And when I say lesson, I mean a page for you about relationships. There's one about environment. There's one about activity, and then there's one about language. Then we go to the next theme of awareness that will cover 2 more of these 5 competencies. And we go back to one that focuses on relationship, environment, activity, language. And then the third theme, right, is the intentions, and that has one on relationship, environment, activity, language. So if I do my math correctly, that comes out to 12, right? 12 of these. And if you're in school for 12 months, then you got 1 per month. I don't know that they quite line. I would not necessarily do them quite the same way, like in that order. This is also like look through and choose what you need when. But the 2 that I picked, I thought go very well at the beginning of the year. So the first one is the first theme. Let's see, how is that on there? Relationships. Oh, it's under, well, I guess that's, sorry, let me look at that again. There we go. The theme is actually, yeah, it's not on this page, but it's interactions, right? Interactions. And so this is about focusing on interactions based on relationship that you want to build, and how to establish yourself in the classroom, how to teach your kids to listen to you. All right. I'm not going to read all of this, but it is based, it comes from a, it comes from a book. It comes from a book. Hold On to Your Kids, which is a parenting book. So this is kind of a twist on that. Okay. But it's based on the idea of connect and collect before you say a darn thing to them. Okay. So connect with them is all about it's really the stuff you probably are already familiar with, like with the relation, like the high fives and the saying hello and all those things, right? That's your connection. And usually we're connecting with them on a personal, individual level, which is fine. But we can also connect with kids collectively, because then we need to collect them anyway. So we're going to start talking to kids once we've gathered them up. And so that's where the explanation is on the left-hand side. Then on the right-hand side, I have ways you can do that. And like I said, most of these are things you've already kind of done before or learned about. But I just want to remind you that the reason for this right now is not so that kids like you. Okay. Don't let that be the reason. It is the result. The result of doing all of this is kids will like you. Now, they may not like you. They might be like, or even just like, no, I don't like them. They're this, or this, or this, but I respect them, or I understand where they're coming from, or, whatever. Okay. We don't need the praise from children. Okay. We don't need them to tell us that they like us. We don't need that kind of validation from children. You're a grown-ass adult, okay? You know where you get your validation from? You. You get your validation from you. And this is how. Well, actually, the self-care is how. And now we do this. So students need to know who is in charge in the classroom. This is why. And unfortunately, a lot of the things that teachers have been encouraged to do have not conveyed who's in charge, or rather, it's conveyed that the kids are in charge. They're not in charge. You're in charge. You're the one setting up that classroom. You're the one organizing everything. You're the one bringing in stuff for everybody. You're the one planning what has to be done. You're the one getting evaluated, right? They have to show up. It's up to them how much work they do and how all you're going to be doing is giving them feedback, right? It's their choice in a way on whether they take advantage of the wonderful gift of you as a teacher. So you want to start off by making sure that you've connected them and connected with them and collected them so they know you're the one doing the collecting. You're the one doing the connecting. You're the one deciding when and how and about what you're going to connect. You do not have to share all of your personal information with kids. There's no reason to. You can choose, right? Which things, and I'll tell you which things you should choose. You choose the things that are most exemplary for them. That gives them something to be like, oh, that's how a person does blah, blah, blah. That's how it could just be how an adult speaks. That's how an adult interacts. That's how an adult solves a problem. Or it can be, oh, that's how a writer works. That's how a mathematician works. That's how somebody paints. That's how somebody fixes a truck. So we want to be that kind of, even if it's just off in the distance, role model. Those are the personal things you're going to share. All right. So yeah, then we're going on, but yeah. Can I just say this again? You're in charge of the classroom. And I know you're like, yeah, I know. No, 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 no. Stop. Take a breath. And now bring it in. Bring it all the way inside you. I'm in charge of the classroom. You don't have to take possession of it. Call it your classroom. Just take your role, take your responsibility. I am in charge of the classroom. And think of that as a way of conveying to your students that they can relax, because guess what? They are not in charge of the classroom. Doesn't that feel good? Like if somebody came in and said, just relax, I'll be in charge right now. It's a relaxing feeling if you trust that person, if you think that person is competent. But if you're 12, 13, 14, and your teacher looks like they're 25, 28, 35, but they sure are acting like a 16-year-old. It's not that they're actually thinking, I don't think this person knows what they're doing. It's unconscious, subconscious, unconscious. It's a nervous system thing saying, is this person in charge? Because if I don't trust them, I'm not going to even let them be in charge. So just convey that right off the bat, and that you are there to take that worry off their plate. Okay? Isn't that a great relationship? And what all do you have to do? Not a whole heck of a lot. What you have to do is you. It's all internal. Well, not all, but most of it. It's mostly internal. All right. And then another thing you can do is focus on the environment, which I know a lot of you, if you've already set up your classroom or you're in the process of setting up your classroom, even if your classroom's already set up, you can look at this and think about any changes you want to make that you like on here. So this is, once again, it's not my classroom and it's not my students' classroom, but it's our environment that we're learning in, our learning environment. We want students to feel safe there. We want them to feel good. We want them to feel like they belong, right? That they're in the right place. So this gives you, I'm honestly, I'm almost embarrassed because if there's one thing Gen Z teachers know how to do, it's bling out a classroom. I can't even believe I had to finally just stop going on Instagram because, and I hope you've stopped going on Instagram for this last week too, because, and I'm not trying to disparage any of the work and the postings that teachers have done and then shared, but they don't have to do that. You don't have to do it. You don't have to set up your classroom to look like a mini library. You don't have to set up your classroom to look like a little fairy tale. You don't have to set up your classroom to look like the North Pole or a fairyland, or did I already say that? Did or like a breakfast cafe. You don't have to do that. Set it up to look like a classroom, a place that learning can happen. And I would say if you keep it a little more sparse, you know what's going to fill it up? Your students' work. And that's a cool thing to see a pretty plain classroom at the beginning of the year. And then as months go by in student work, which number one should not all be on a computer, right? But when that starts filling the room, that's the highlight of the room. Otherwise, if you already have a whole bunch of stuff, then their work just becomes additional clutter that only is really only noticeable to the one kid for their one thing once in a while. All right. So feel free to take that off your plate if you um, are feeling pressured to do more. You don't have to. That is, I want that to be your your mantra for the year. This is not necessary. This is not necessary. Okay. I've talked about this before. Yeah, to encourage social awareness, use discussion activities that help them learn more about similarities that kids have. So this is practicing some social awareness, right? Getting familiar with not just themselves, because we all kind of live in a very small bubble right now. And like, let's work on expanding the bubble so that my bubble actually includes more people, and my energy is others people's energy, and my hurt is other people's hurt, but also my joy is other people's joy, right? Let's get that going. So here are some things. So like I said, read it when you have a chance, pick and choose a couple things here and there. Notice you don't have to stop your class to do most of these. You can turn your math activity into the social awareness activity, right? You can turn a discussion about a book or an active, or a character or something, or punctuation into an appreciation circle. Just make it simple. Make it simple. Simplicity is powerful. Okay, mantra number 2, simplicity is powerful. So please, please, please keep it simple. No, I'm not. Keep it simple, sweetie. That's what I'll say. Okay. And then last but not least, you've got a couple of links here. This is where my mindful school stuff is. So you can go to that if you want to dive into more PD related things, professional development, mindful schools, mindful teachers, mindful parents. I do all that there. That's more like structured. Okay. If you just want to, oh, well, if I haven't said it, which I already have said it, but I'm going to say it again, please subscribe. Please, please, please. If you're watching this later, please subscribe. If you have questions about this, or if you want me to circle back to something on here and go a little bit deeper, although I know I mean, I've talked for an hour already, then, let me, how do I undo this? Yeah, then let's, yeah, I know what I was saying. Put that in the comments if there's something you want me to circle back to. Oh, if you would like to know when the book is actually being released, right? When I'm done editing it. I mean, it's just a teeny little handbook, and I want as many people to be able to grab it as possible. But get on the newsletter because I'm not sure when it'll be done. And I also don't really know how I'm going to distribute it, to be honest. So put your name in the newsletter or share this. Just grab the link and share this link out with other people who might want to get that book or just know what else is going on. I usually put out like a schedule of the next 2 months of what's going on, kind of like what else I'm thinking about or working on for the month or the 2 months. Everything I do here centers on this mindful energy, intentional and mindful energy. But I'll tell you, all of the spokes that come out from that central hub, there's a lot. There are a lot of things that I am interested in and that I bring this mindfulness to. And so if maybe you're interested in one of them, like I said, like running is another one. All right. Anything else? Okay. I'm so excited to have. I hope this worked. I don't even know. I'm trying a new software. So let's see. Well, as you can see, it's StreamYard, which I guess is the popular. It's what all the cool kids are using here on YouTube. So hopefully you can hear me. And hopefully this made some sense. And I can't wait to see how many of you grab this, try one or two, or, tell me if you've already used some of these strategies, some of these activities, some of these ways of looking at your teaching year or you yourself. But if you have, if you know a teacher, if you are a teacher, know a teacher, love a teacher, like my praises to them, to you. I appreciate everything you're doing because I've been there and I know what it takes. Parents, just remember this. Most parents are so, so, so appreciative. And also, if you're a parent, just know that most teachers are so, so appreciative of everything you're doing. And as they say, it takes a village. And I love when our village is a mindful village that's creating a really good energy for kids to learn in and thrive in and enjoy life in. Okay. Subscribe, like, share, and have a wonderful, wonderful school year. Okay. I see your light. Bye.